to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Didn't see it.
I had neglected to give a few changes for the August 6th minutes, so I asked to have them back on the agenda, and most of them are clarifications, and I'll just go through them. And under communications and correspondence, the last sentence in the first paragraph, and I'm going to share this with our recording secretary, Sharon, so she'll have it. He hopes to have the bike pedestrian consultant engaged and working by September. The word had been hired, but it's not going to be an employee, so we're going to use the word engaged there. And in the second paragraph, Kathy Herron, chair of the Complete Streets Group, because it's technically, even though they were calling it a committee, it's really a group because it's not a designated committee of the Board of Selectmen. And then on page 2, I asked that something that Bruce Tyler said for things like a better network of healthcare and senior services. I'm not sure that's what he said because it's the plan of conservation and development does not talk about healthcare. And then in the second paragraph, there's just a slight error. It says Mr. Taylor. It should be Mr. Tyler. And I had one other suggestion to delete, which would read, going forward, Susan will propose this option and do funding for 2 years. And we're not sure of the second year, so it might have been a wish, but I can't say that it's a definite because we only give 1 year. The last paragraph, instead of the word contingency fund, we're going to call it contingency account. And then it's the planning department, not planning and zoning commission. And on the very last page, Emily Cosentino from Howd and Lou Dorff, just a spelling change. And with those, I would request that there be an approval of the amended minutes for the August 6, 2014 minutes. Is there a motion to that effect? Is there a motion by Kathy? Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Fred. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Ryan abstains and Mark abstains, as they previously had. And I'm going to pass those on to Sharon. The next is the August 20, 2014 minutes, and there was just one spelling correction on page 5. There was a motion by Mark Finkelstein, seconded by Kathy Richards, to refund Hart instead of H-U-R-T. It should be H-A-R-T, first name Leontine. And I will also pass that down to our recording secretary. With that one change, is there a motion to approve the August 20, 2014 minutes?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mark and seconded by Carl. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. And I do not have any items under executive session tonight, so with the...
I had requested one.
I had thought you had said October 1.
Oh, that's all right.
So I had put it down as
That's
October
fine.
1.
That's fine.
So this executive session on land acquisition, we do not need. I don't have anything in updating material tonight.
Okay.
So with that one change, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Carl and seconded by Kathy. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Under communications and correspondence, I'm sharing with the selectmen some communications. The first will not be on tonight's agenda, but it will be on perhaps the 17th of September or the 1st of October. Maybe I'll wait till the 1st of October because it's a financial matter. For 47 Main Street, there's a fixed assessment application. And this is for Midport Bridge LLC and Connecticut Pharmaceutical Solutions LLC. So I'm providing you with the report from Richard Lasky, our assessor, and also information on the application that was submitted to us. So we'll put that on October 1. I'll give you some time to review that. The second item is under communications. We received word today that the Portland Police Department will be conducting a DUI checkpoint on Saturday, September 6th on Portland Cobalt Road in the area of Grove Street between the hours of 8 p.m. and 1 a.m. Funding for this checkpoint is supplemented by a grant from the State of Connecticut Department of Transportation Highway Safety Office. The effect of the DUI checkpoints is a proven resource in reducing the number of persons killed and injured in alcohol-related crashes. Research shows that crashes involving an impaired driver can be reduced by up to 20% when well-publicized DUI checkpoints and proactive DUI patrols are conducted routinely. Save a life, don't drink and drive. And this was issued by Lieutenant Millardo, and we received a formal letter that federal funds in the amount not to exceed $10,275 are obligated to this project. So that will help us to defray the costs of overtime and bringing on personnel for the DUI.
Do we have enough manpower in town to handle this?
We do for this, yes.
I've seen them on the Berlin Turnpike, and it's a big deal.
Yeah, it is. It's quite a few officers that they put on. And sometimes they do it as a regional effort. This one is just Portland, but other times we've done regional efforts whereby there might be one in Portland and there's another one further down the road, and/or one weekend day and then another
Double
checkpoint,
jeopardy.
another weekend.
That's, it's a good thing they got the grant, because that's something I think a lot of the board members have had concerns
Yes.
about safety,
Yeah.
and this really,
And we're gonna continue to apply for these, Fred,
On the way home.
because there are many other dates that we can get these for. It's not a 100% reimbursement. We do put up our, is it 20%? I think it's an 80-20%. They pay 80 and we pay 20, and depending on who is staffing it, determines what the cost is, because each officer has a different rate that they're paid based on seniority. The next good news, we received from the Cumberland Farms, and I think this is in your packet. I tried to give you a copy, from the manager and marketing team today, and this was dated, I believe, on Monday. No, excuse me, Tuesday. Tuesday was the last day of the four-week fundraiser involving Cumberland Farms and the Parks and Recreation Summer Quest. But there's no need to be sad, because the amount we have raised so far is staggering. In nearly 4 weeks, we have been able to raise a total of $2,174.70 from the sale of 21,747 cups of dispensed beverages at our beautiful new Portland store. These results are absolutely fantastic, and the best part is that these are only preliminary fundraising results. I will be sending out the final numbers on Thursday, tomorrow, once they've been given enough time to be captured by the sales tracking team. And I want to thank Cumberland Farms for this nice partnership with the Parks and Recreation Department, and
Very nice.
it's really quite generous of them and generous of their customers. So that's good information. The next item is public comment. Is there any public comment tonight? There'll be an opportunity later in the meeting as well. Monthly budget report. Tom Robinson is here. And I believe you have your reports at your stations. Good evening.
Hello. So I've given you all the general fund revenue and expenses. So far to date, it's fairly new year. Not a lot is straying so far from where we were anticipating, which is good. There is, in the revenue side, the Brownstone Exploration Park had a strong July, and you'll see that in account 01-03-003030, property rental. So that was a decent amount of money there for our town.
It was $125,857.70.
Just for the month.
Just for the month of July, correct, Tom?
Correct.
Yes.
Other grants from the state haven't come in yet, and that's normal, so that's not really a worry, but they will come in time, as anticipated for most, we hope. The numbers that are there for town clerk are just the month of July. Our numbers for August will come in the next week or so. So revenues are, coming in, and that one was a highlight. For our expenses, we have the expense pages here, and the main areas of, just in generalities we'll talk of, is electricity seems to be a little bit higher than we've been anticipating, as that's come in on the cost a little bit higher, and just a reading of is higher usage that's out there. So keep monitoring that and keep looking into those components, but there's not a lot you can do with electricity other than some of the conservation projects, and we'd had implemented some, so. There's a few pending lawsuits that may have an impact upon contingency or other funds that may need to be utilized. But to this point, there's really nothing there more to discuss that we can just discuss in session here. So that's something that we'll keep an eye on and keep looking toward, and keep you posted and apprised of as we go forward. A couple of other things just that we've been doing in the finance office for this past month or so. We've had a coordinated effort through the various departments of the Public Works Department, Town Tech, Board of Ed, Grounds, to do a town auction utilizing Gov Deals, and that's an online auction site. And we've been successful in those matters. So we've done that, and we get that's how we sell assets that are to be disposed of. And there was some assets that we have done. We did utilize some of the Board of Ed this time, which was a good effort together. Specifically, I'd like to thank Kevin Armstrong in our technology department for all his help on this. He really was an asset in helping me put this together, and working through the process. And Rick and Carl Johnson and the mechanics from Public Works, and Paul Bankston and his custodial staff on the Board of Ed side. So that was a nice item. On the water sewer front, going to be sending out some more demand letters. The water and sewer clerk will, and then if we don't hear back on those demands, we will be sending out shutoffs to people that are not paying based on some analysis that the finance department, the water sewer department has performed. So just wanted to give you a couple of other, insight on some of those other things. We also have the lease program that had the closing was in July, so the monies are in the town, and we've had one of the items for the trackless mower has come in and been paid for, and that's in use. And then the closing costs, obviously the lease have been paid for. So that's, program is moving along. Purchase orders are out for the majority of the goods. So that's a good process, and I think that hopefully we'll get some good assets for the town for many, many years at a reasonable interest rate. Any other questions?
I see that there are a number of line items in the Board of Education budget where they have already spent their annual allocation. And I think some of it is probably because of timing, like workbooks and supplies and so forth with the start of school. But there are other areas that I'm not sure is so seasonal. I wonder if you have any comment on that.
You know, generally, as you know, we let the Board of Ed discuss their monies out there.
Right.
You know, I can talk globally, you know what I mean, without looking specifically at the numbers. There's a few things where when they budget, where the Board of Ed budgets, they'll budget in an objects level, and then they have numbers that will be journal entry throughout the year because they just don't know. Like, so if you have some types of tuitions that might be allocated amongst different areas, well, they'll gain tuitions in one account, and then during
So
the
they'll
year,
make adjusting entries later.
it'll be allocated, so it's just, then at the end of the year, there's a global budget transfer that makes sure they're not over budget in totality. But that's why I think you see some of those big sweeping different, like, you know, it's budgeted 0 and you see, you know, 200,000. It's because there's things that they budget maybe in some other line item, and then it gets allocated when they know where it's going.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just one quick one on that. Pequot Mohegan Grant, is that, I thought we phased that out, or is that, there's still some remnant of it left? That's first page 202.
As of the last, but last year we got the monies in, and in this cycle during the governor's proposed budget, it was there.
So that,
So money should be coming in.
they did phase out certain parts of that, as I recall, right, of that.
I think it got unphased out.
Oh, it got unphased out, okay. All right.
Yeah, I think they brought it back.
Mhm.
I know in the prior year, there was things that we had phased out in the general fund revenue, and then they brought them back when it got to the finalized version. And this one is one of those ones where I think is brought back. I mean, again, if we don't start seeing it and there is a change, I will report that when we don't see it. But our estimation based on what we had seen when we were doing the budgeting from the mayor, from the governor, was that, anticipate roughly around 31,813. So we are anticipating it.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is the steep Phase 4 Brownstone Avenue. I did receive from the State Department of Economic and Community Development the paperwork that is associated with having the agreement, the assistance agreement approved. And there's a resolution in front of you that describes the grant as being $363,000. And it's essentially authorizing me on your behalf to sign all of the paperwork so that we can get started on this grant. Is there a motion to approve?
Move adoption, waive the reading.
Second.
Seconded by Ryan?
Question.
Yes.
The only, I have no difficulty, it's good, sounds like a good project in terms of finalizing the initiative. One of the things I was concerned about, and it may have been included, was that in the preliminary plans, there was no access path or road from the parking lot to the pavilion. Is that now part of the project?
Yeah, I brought the grant with me, Fred, and I believe we did include that. If you just bear with me for a minute. I have asked that we get a preliminary meeting going, because I want to run this similar to what we did in the past, which was we have a focus group or a stakeholders group, which I'd love to have you join. And we'll sit and discuss the aspects of the grant. You can make some adjustments typically on these grants with permission from DECD. So there may be some pluses and minuses to things that we have included here. This is what the Phase 4 includes. Install water and sewer connections to pavilion that was constructed in Phase 3. Complete the unfinished storage utility room in the pavilion, which will include a wash sink. Construct a freestanding, handicapped accessible restroom facility for men and women. Construct a permanent band shell cover over the existing amphitheater stage built in Phase 3. Install a 600 linear foot penetration macadam surface driveway to the pavilion, along with a code-compliant handicapped parking area. Did put that. And then the last is install additional outdoor amenities such as landscaping, grills, and picnic tables. So those are the items that are included. And we anticipate construction cost would be $275,000. Engineering costs at 20% of construction, $55,000, for a subtotal of $330,000. A contingency, which is 10% of the subtotal of $33,000, and the total estimated cost of the project, therefore, is $363,000. We anticipate from the grant award, which is actually this assistance agreement, once I get it back from the state, we anticipate the design for 6 months, design to completion of construction 9 months, anticipated time for completion, barring unforeseen circumstances, 15 months. But all of that is subject to change based on what the final design is and what the weather brings, of course. We did have a very successful concert series. I know many of you attended this summer. I think Brownstone Quorum and Parks and Recreation did a fabulous job of putting that together, and our technology department assisted as well in a lot of the setup of, Dave went down and set up a lot of the bands, and that was a big help to us. There's a lot of, as you know, back work that has to be done for these, and I think our staff did a fabulous job working with the Brownstone Quorum, which is all volunteer. They really did a nice job. I think they estimated some nights 350 up to 600 people, depending on the band.
That's great.
Yeah, and the weather cooperated, which was really good. Someone had mentioned to me while we're talking about this, and I know we still have a motion on the table, but one thing that I wanted to mention is someone came in and said, "Why are you charging for use of the pavilion? Why isn't it free for anyone who lives in the town?"
You have to clean it.
There are
Maintenance costs.
associated costs, right?
Safety.
You can absorb the costs, or you can pass them on. One thing I wanted to point out, though, without any change in our policy, is if you go to the park and the pavilion is open, you can sit in it and you can have your picnic. You don't have to pay to use it. What the payment is a reservation, so that no one else can use that pavilion for a period of time, whether it's 5 hours or 6 hours, and you may invite guests and use the facility, and you would have sole use of it. And as Mark pointed out, there would be a need for breakage and/or cleaning. With water and sewer there, it's gonna be a lot easier. Right now, people have to bring water in, and I know Sean Dwyer does a lot of the cleanup himself. We've had some rentals down there, but that's something for you to consider. I told this constituent I'd pass it on and let you know, so we can certainly revisit these things anytime. But I wanted to stress that it is open. It's not that you have to pay to just go down and use it, but you're taking a chance that someone else may be there or may have rented it. So.
Do we know what it actually generated for people reserving?
I'm going to say there were about, Tom, you may have gotten some of the revenues. I don't know if there was about 9 different parties. I think 6. I'll be conservative and say maybe half a dozen. It does get a lot of use. There was a wonderful also race. Kathy and I were there, and the race went very well, and that's where they started the race, was at the pavilion, and it was well attended. It's nice. There was a walk and a run. It's nice. So that being said, is there a motion to approve the resolution as presented for Brownstone 4. Take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
No, somebody else made a motion. Somebody did. Mark?
Mark and Ryan.
Ryan.
Call. Yep.
Mark made it,
Ryan second.
Okay, I also included a listing that I drew up of, I think Fred had mentioned this would be good to have, a running list. This is by no means exhaustive, of various other steep eligible projects that we would want to consider. And I also included that the 2015 steep projects application notification has gone out. And Governor Malloy is pleased to announce to all eligible steep municipalities, which we are one, that the Office of Policy and Management is now accepting applications for funding for fiscal year 2015.
When will those be acted upon?
As we continue to, let's see, they would be on a rolling basis, and applications may be submitted anytime between now and November 28th, 2014 for consideration this fiscal year, and decisions will be announced on or before January 30, 2015.
We should apply quickly
Yep,
for the
We usually
impending
do.
election.
we usually do. So with that, what they're asking for is only capital projects are considered, and priority will be given to proposed projects which create or retain jobs, improve quality of life for residents, can begin in the immediate future. That's key, I know that for these grants. And have secured necessary additional funds for the project. Please note only capital projects will be considered. And we had recently had the Airline Trail Group come, so I put that on the list. I look at Main Street and I see a lot of our curbs that I think were put in probably the 1980s. And a lot of them are starting to crumble. I'm sure those of you that use Main Street may have seen that. So I put curb replacements, particularly in that Main Street area. Once you get the monies for these projects, you're responsible for keeping them up. And this project was done, not the more recent one. That area of Main Street's fine. This is from really the intersection with 66 going east, north. And a lot of, by Liberty Bank, there's a piece that's falling apart, and a lot of the connections between the businesses parking and the road is starting to crumble. Businesses try to get them done by themselves, or the DOT does them, but it's something that I know we talk a lot about. So, the other is park improvements. In speaking with Carl Johnson, he said there are always needs for improvements to the parks. Irrigation is one area. We get some funding through LoCIP for this, so this is not the only source of funding, but that's.
Are any of our parks water, do we have water irrigation systems in any of them?
I believe Nolan Field, correct, Tom?
Nolan Field
And
and Rose Hill.
Rose Hill.
Rose Hill does too?
My father's field does.
The big field?
Yes.
The hardball field?
Hardball.
Yes.
And then there's the Route 17 recreational park, which the plans will be drawn up based on what you and the committee decide to do first. So if it's going to be a staged project, that's what we will tell the engineers to give us contract documents for. If you're going to do the whole project, now that's a big chunk of money, nowhere near being accomplished by STEEP. So that's still going to be discussed with you in the near future. The sand salt storage shed that we got money for previously, there's probably not enough money there. That's in an area of aquifer protection, and that will need to be likely a bigger facility based on the fact that the DPH and the DEEP want all of the mixing of sand and salt to be done inside, not outside. So I don't have any numbers for you, we don't have the plans drawn up, but that could be another item on the
But
list.
the money that you have, you can retain that money for the future?
Well,
You don't
for the
lose it?
shed,
Yeah, for that specific.
I don't think there's enough, Kelly.
Okay, but I mean, you don't lose that money because you don't use it within a certain time frame.
You have to ask for an extension. If you change it, for example, we had a little bit of money left in the streetscape project that we did not spend. So we requested that that amount of money be put toward the sand salt shed, and they approved that. So we made an amendment. So the process with STEEP is we keep a close relationship with DECD, if they're the entity that does most of our grants, or DEE, whatever the agency is. And you tell them when you have money left over and you want to transfer it over, or if you don't have enough money, how you would supplement that, either through town monies or from another grant. And there's a time period under which you have to spend the money, and if you don't, you have to get permission for an extension, which they give, provided there's sufficient reason. Sewer extensions is another possibility. We talked about the grinder pump down on Airline Avenue, as I'm recalling. Sidewalk installation and repairs throughout the town. There's always sidewalk needs. Some areas require sidewalks, for example, on East Main Street where we put those trees in. There used to be sidewalks there, and they became, we took them and put them in the pavilion. They were brownstone slabs. So those could have replacement sidewalks. And water main replacements and additions is another STEEP project. So all these items are for your consideration. And again, I don't expect an answer tonight, but I think as an ongoing project, we need to talk about how you want to fund things. And STEEP is $500,000 a year, up to $500,000 a year is what you can apply for. You can apply for multiple grants, but you need to prioritize them. Okay. So if you'd like, I'll put that on the next agenda again, so that we can, is that a good idea? So that'll be, do you want it, I think I'll put it on October 1, because September 17th, we have that public hearing on the tower, and depending on how many people come, that may run a little long. And I don't want to do important business and then not get to it. So, okay. Anything else on STEEP? It's a wonderful program, and it really, I think, has made a huge difference in our community, and I know it's made a difference in a lot of towns. Hope it doesn't ever go away. The next item is the Connecticut Trust for Historic Preservation Vibrant Communities Initiative Grant Fund. I gave you a copy of the application, which I believe we have discussed when, remember, Mr. Hassan was here and Mr. Giles was here, and a number of other people came to talk about the Elmcrest site. And we requested grant funding for the preparation of a market analysis and plan to revision an approved mixed-use development project. And the objective of the grant would be to create a concept plan based on an updated market analysis, which will provide an economically viable alternative for the owner and developer to consider as they move the project forward. It's critical to the community that responsible commercial development, including the adaptive reuse of historic structures, occurs on the property as a stimulus for revitalization of Portland's adopted plan. And we received word on Tuesday that we have received $50,000 in a planning grant. And I met today with he's called the circuit rider. and also Jane Montanaro, who's the Director of Preservation Services. And I will be inviting the owner and developer to come in and speak with us on this. And we'll also be working with the Connecticut Trust for Historic Preservation in putting together a request for proposals, which will go out, and then a team of experts, be they architects, landscape architects, be they marketing specialists for this type of a project, and they will come up with a plan. We did something similar with the quarries, and some of you may remember that. We received a $50,000 grant from the state of Connecticut at that time, and I believe that was in the early 2000s. And the Williams Group was hired, and they came up with a concept plan for marketability of that project, and it's worked. We used that as a basis to get the lease agreement, and we also used the Carol Johnson report as the basis for the streetscape project, which was the improvement of our Main Street walkability project.
Has there been any follow-up on the lease request for?
They have requested a date, and I will, perhaps after this meeting, get some dates from, you're on the team, and who else came to that? Anyone else come to that? This is the Brownstone
Were you there?
Exploration Discovery Park.
You were there.
Oh, yeah.
I think Kathy was there.
Yeah, I was
Yes, so I will establish another date, and then we'll bring back to you information, and they're looking at some changes to the lease, not the least of which is an extension, because we're now into year, I think we're in year 7 or 8 of 25.
There was a 911 call there a couple of weeks ago where Lifestar was called.
Yes.
Do you know what the outcome of that was?
I don't know the outcome. I
Or the
know
injuries?
that the individual was on the rope swing, and the individual evidently didn't intend to fall, even though you're supposed to drop in the water. And I think the person fell awkwardly into the water. They didn't fall on the ground. But as the first aid and the first responders, our excellent fire department responded, her symptoms were such that they followed their written protocols that Lifestar be contacted. And they did arrive, and I don't know, that's private information as far as the condition of the person, but I did not hear anything negative, let me put it that way. So,
That's good.
I do want to compliment the first aid, which was administered by Brownstone Exploration Discovery Park, as well as our first responders. Sean Hayes gave so many compliments to our fire department and how they responded and took care that that person got the best care possible.
We are very blessed with our fire department.
Yes, we are.
Can we get an update at some point as to what the insurance limits are for the Brownstone Park and what ours are? If we don't know that
Well,
already.
it's in the lease,
Right.
and that's something that the committee is
We
looking
looked
with
at
them
it.
on, yeah.
So we'll discuss that.
In fact, they would like that there be some accommodation given the nature of that sport that is similarly given by legislative action to ski resorts. Ski resorts have I don't know what it's called, but they have.
They get immunity, which seems like nonsense to me, but I mean, sure. My opinion.
So, moving right along, that's what I have on that particular matter. I will meet, as I said, with the developer and the owner of Elmcrest and the circuit rider, probably within the next 2 weeks.
Circuit rider kind of reminds me of the judge that comes around the circuit on a horse.
Yeah, Lincoln was a circuit rider.
Back in the day.
Do you remember that?
I think, did
Moving
judges
on.
do that too?
Abe Lincoln.
Yeah, I know he
Yeah,
did,
yeah.
yeah, that was his job. Let's see.
Appointments.
Yeah, just wanted to know if there was something else I wanted to tell you, but I guess not. Okay. Appointments to boards and commissions. I do not have any tonight. Does anyone have any? Kathy or Carl? Okay. We did have one resignation, and that was Don Snyder from Zoning Board of Appeals.
Did he resign yet, or is he talking about it?
He submitted a letter to the
Yes.
town clerk and copied me, yes.
Okay.
He felt that, given his professional requirements, that he couldn't afford the time, and wanted to make sure that he thanked everyone for the opportunity, and we thank him. But at this point, he feels he can't serve. Refunds of excess payments.
Move that Sharon Ryan be refunded $1,985.58.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Move that Michael J. Ferrara Jr. be refunded $16.05.
Second.
Seconded by Brian. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Move that USB Leasing Limited, or LT, be refunded $230.72.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Move that Susan A. Green be refunded $99.82.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Move that Kogut Florist and Nurseryman, Inc. be refunded $1,659.72.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Move that Bernd A. Frost be refunded $136.24.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Move that Honda Lease Trust be refunded the sums of $176.51, $153.50, $133.12, and $99.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Move that Brian L. Thatcher be refunded the sums of $131.54 and $5.56.
Second.
Seconded by Brian. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I move that Wendy Thatcher be refunded $70.77.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Status and committee reports. I don't have anything to report tonight, other than we will be inviting, we will have a meeting on water sewer on October 1st here, and I will invite the Water and Sewer Commission and others. And on the second meeting in October, which that date is the 15th, we will have invited guests from the Metropolitan District Commission who will come and speak to us.
And what about the Board of Ed? Are we gonna talk with them too?
Philip O'Reilly told me today that he met with the Board of Education last night and is trying to get a date, so he's going to meet with me tomorrow when both boards can meet.
Can we do that, you think, at a meeting? Like one of our meetings, or would this be a special meeting?
Probably, if it's one of our regularly scheduled meetings, it would have to be the first or second Wednesday. If it's a special meeting, it'll be another day.
Don't we really only need one person just to explain why the decision was made?
Others would be, typically they come, and if they all come, that's fine. I just notice it as a meeting. It doesn't have to be everyone, but everyone is welcome to come, and if they want to attend, if I don't notice it as a joint meeting,
Mhm.
they have to wait outside.
Okay,
So
so
it's safer
it's gotta
to-
be through a joint meeting, I guess, is what you're saying?
It
Something
doesn't
like
have
this.
to be, but
Okay.
if one person from the board is invited and others want to come, they can't come unless it's noticed under FOI rules as a joint meeting.
I see, okay.
Because we're talking about substantive matters, so if they're here, it has to be simply told to the public that they're gonna be here.
Okay.
They don't have to come, but it's a notification. Okay. Public comment. No public comment. Informal discussion? Fred?
You know I'd have something, you'd be disappointed. if
Good. I would be.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, I figured you would. Just a couple of quick things. One, I noted that in one of the minutes of the committee met regarding the rim trail, which is out at the reservoir, and building a little parking lot possibly. And I just wanted to comment, I think those are great ideas, low-cost kinds of activities, which doesn't sound like it would be a lot of money. For passive recreation is really what we should look at, and of course in conjunction with the park and rec and conservation. But a good idea, and I'm glad to see that initiative was there. The other had to do with just our blight situation, which is one of our recent ordinances. And, I know Perry Avenue was an issue that came up again, and I don't know. I took a ride down there; it looked a little better. And I don't know if you're satisfied with what they did, but
I don't know if Lincoln has released that. I know that there was some changes made. There was another letter that went out today on a property on Berry Avenue as well. So Lincoln typically will write a letter to them if he closes it out, and I haven't seen that yet.
and if Lincoln, I know, has provided a report, but he doesn't have to come in every time. But I know the wheels grind slowly, but some of the properties and some of our members have brought up some of them recently too. It would be good just to see where they were and
Okay.
along the way. The properties.
On that spreadsheet?
Yeah, properties up along the where the movie theater used to be. They're in pretty bad shape up there. And I'm curious about those.
Oh,
What's the one that
okay.
had the fire?
I have an update on that.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Let me make sure I get this right. An application has been submitted because the property was purchased by someone where the burnt house was and the garage. And an application by the new owner was made to the town to tear it down. But before it can be torn down, because it's more than 75 years old, if I'm not mistaken, is that the right property? There is a notification made to the Historical Society, and I believe that, I know that was done.
Are you serious?
I'll tell you, one time it wasn't done, and they got very upset with us.
On a house that was destroyed?
The garage is still there.
No, I think there's a house in the front and the garage in the back that burnt. I
Once you
think
take
it's
the
house in
caution
front.
tape down, it's really lovely.
I'm just telling you what the ordinance tells us to do, and we follow
Yeah.
it. So the application is submitted, and I don't think there's been any objection. So that's a good thing. The property out on 66, that is on the way toward East Hampton on the right-hand side, there's been some improvement there. And there is a property on the opposite side of Main Street going toward the quarries. And there's been a plan, and I believe some improvements there. That went to our attorney, because we had that under, actually, some zoning violations. That wasn't just blight. And the last I learned, there were some improvements that were being made there.
Didn't I see that there's an appeal on the Marlboro Street property?
Yes. Not Marlboro Street, Portland Cobalt, I think, right there.
Same-
Yeah.
same thing.
It's the same, yes. And I think it was delayed for another meeting. Yeah, they're in front of ZBA.
Sorry, Chuck.
So that wasn't blight, that was a zoning violation, I
It was blight. It was pretty ugly.
believe. Yeah. I will ask Lincoln to update his sheet and share that with you. And Main Street is, grass is still pretty low. It's getting a little higher. It rained, so we'll work on that too. Anything else, Fred? I also wanted to, Rana and Dave are here. We had a wonderful ribbon cutting at Connecticut Valley School of Music and Dance. And really, the facility is beautiful. If you have a chance to go in and visit, It is really well done. And there's going to be an open house on this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And I believe there's gonna be some retro prices.
Rolling back our lesson prices to 30 years ago.
Lesson prices will be the same as they were 30 years ago.
What's
For a
that?
period of time. A lot less than it is.
12 cents?
16.
But it's really
Can you really teach me how to play guitar?
beautiful job.
Absolutely.
And that's a combination of using the Small Business Express program that the state, the Governor Malloy put forward, and he did a fabulous job in putting it all together, and it's a wonderful addition to our Main Street. So that was fun. We also went to Revolution Properties. Kathy went with me to that, she was able to attend. And that is a new business on Main Street that is property management. Might be something Carl would be interested in learning a little more about, because that's your line of work. A beautiful redo of that building too.
Where are they?
They're where the credit union used to be and what used to be the Peterson building next to
Oh,
it,
yes.
and next to where it used to be tennis courts, now it's the pickleball courts, which we'll talk about later.
Pickleball.
Yep. And then Cumberland Farms had a wonderful, fun time for their ribbon cutting, and I'm sure everyone has visited that. We have not yet had the opening for the Medical Arts Building, the Brownstone Medical Arts Building on Freestone and High Streets.
Is that open now?
Yes.
I was gonna
Right.
say, it's wonderful.
Yeah?
Mhm.
It's a
Very nice.
pickleball
For medical
court.
reasons?
For
We're gonna
medical,
get back
yeah.
to
Put it
that.
on the
Okay.
camera, right there.
And
That's right.
the town, speaking of sidewalks, we put a small section of sidewalks that needed to be replaced there, so that the entry and the walkability there is improved. That's the kind of thing I'd like to continue to do, as
But
long
they
as
won't
we
pay
can.
taxes for
Who?
the hospital building.
It's not owned by the hospital, it's
Oh.
owned by Mr. Walt Smith,
Oh.
and Walt has a lease with the hospital, so yes, he
So they
will
will
pay
pay
taxes,
taxes.
yes.
Wonderful.
And Mr. Smith was so appreciative of all his workers, he had a reception for the people that built the
Well,
building.
that's very nice.
Last week, and I attended, it was really very.
Where did he have that?
Farrell's,
Oh.
no, at Farrell's. He used, whenever possible, he used Portland craftsmen and contractors.
That's very commendable.
Yeah, and he really did a beautiful job, and he's looking maybe to do some more in-town work. Anyway, down at the tennis, we used to be tennis courts, there's a game now that people play called pickleball. And I guess it's played with a racket that looks like a racquetball racket and a soft, like Nerf ball type ball. And somebody came in and told me that there's some really champion players in Portland, and they have leagues that play this game. It's a shortened tennis court. A lot of people in Florida play it, and they're delighted that we have 2 courts on Main Street. And I've seen people down there using them. And also for Parks and Rec as.
We have 2 pickleball courts?
Yes.
Maybe
we
Would
could
you like
start a
to
league.
have a pickup?
And we had
day?
planned that?
Yes.
We did?
It's also a training ground for particularly young people, children, that want to learn tennis. It's a shortened court, but it would be available for young kids to have tennis lessons. It was something that Sean told us would be better used than having another tennis court there, because we have beautiful tennis courts up at the high school that people can use. So, that's all good stuff. We have not heard if we got the Main Street grant, which would be additional improvements in front of that. And we also are going to be improving the walking trail at Bransfield Park, which is that stone dust court that goes around one of the play fields. Is that Kosminski Field? And a resident came in and said now that school is open, he can't use the walking track at the high school because there's students there. So he asked that we regrade and put more stone there so that there's no puddles. So grounds and the highway crew are gonna take care of that. He said you wouldn't believe how many people use that walking track.
No,
It's
that's pretty
really
good, yeah.
well used. We're also gonna be putting a new gate there, and we had replaced some of the guardrails that were there. And we have been able to replace a lot of the very old guardrails which are unsafe. We've been able to make a dent in that. We're very happy about that, so.
You're replacing street signs too?
Well, there's been a few, but I don't know that that's a concerted effort. Where did you see them?
Main and William, I think? New street signs, Main and William, I think.
What
is
did it
where I
look
saw
like?
it. Green and white.
Okay. They're the breakaway. Probably next year, we anticipate we'll have more dollars to do a more concerted effort. So I've asked the fire department to come up with the priorities as to where the signage really needs to be improved, and so they're working on that. We'll get that going. We've done some. That's all I have for now. I have nothing on follow-up items. And unless there's anything else, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Fred. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.